Thank you everyone for joining us today. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands of the Treaty 6 First Nations. My name is Chris Nielsen and I'm the MLA for Edmonton Decore. And I'm very pleased today to be alongside the Municipal Affairs Minister, Daniel Larrivee. And I'd also like to acknowledge representatives from our partner organizations who have joined us here this afternoon. From the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, Executive Director James Asselford. And from Edmonton Emergency Relief Services Society, we have Cindy Hachet. Following our speakers, we'll have time for some questions, and then we'll take a tour of the warehouse. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Minister Larrivee.
Thank you, MLA Nielsen. On behalf of Premier Notley and all of my government colleagues, it is an honor to be here today. I would like to begin by thanking everyone who stepped up to help the people of Fort McMurray. As someone who knows firsthand how hard and scary it is to leave behind a home and community, I also know how important it is to have support. As a province and as a nation, we have stood with the residents of Wood Buffalo, showing them that they are part of a much bigger community. At the same time, the people of Fort McMurray have shown us what it is to be resilient and strong. It is in this spirit of community and resilience that I am proud to announce the Alberta government's partnership with the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo and the Adventist Development and Relief Agency of Canada, or ADRA. Through this partnership, we will work together to coordinate the collection and distribution of material donations to Wood Buffalo residents who are getting back on their feet. Over the last month and a half, our government has been focused on the safety and well-being of evacuees, and that focus continues as residents begin to resettle in Fort McMurray. This site, the Alberta Wildfire Donation Centre, will serve as the hub for donations from around the province. From here, donations will be sorted and transported to Fort McMurray and Alberta communities supporting displaced Wood Buffalo residents. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency Canada, ADRA, will manage the site, coordinate the transportation of donations, and organize volunteers to sort items for distribution to those who need them. The agency has 6 decades of expertise and experience managing large-scale humanitarian and disaster relief efforts throughout the world, including Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy. Our government is proud to partner with them to continue our work supporting people affected by this devastating wildfire. I am also proud of the so many Albertans who came together to help one another in a time of great need. Throughout the last month and a half, I've seen so many acts of kindness and compassion. From children running lemonade stands and donating the proceeds, to oil sound companies providing shelter to evacuees. Each act of generosity has moved me, and I'm sure most Albertans, deeply. Among those acts, the works of the Edmonton Emergency Relief Services Society stands out in this city. This small team of 5 staff and a handful of volunteers has made sure thousands of evacuees had their basic needs met. They worked with local businesses in the city of Edmonton to organize donation drop-offs, a warehouse, and a distribution site at Kingsway Mall. Their executive director, Cindy Hachet, is here with us today, and she has taken on every role from administration to mop duty. On behalf of our government, I want to thank you and your team for your tireless work during this difficult disaster. I would also like to acknowledge David Aitken and Dan Lajeunesse from the City of Edmonton for all the help and support as we transitioned donation management to ADRA and this warehouse over the past couple of weeks. In closing, the dramatic images of this fire are no longer on TV every day. Residents are safe and services are returning to Fort McMurray, but our hard work is not over. Some people lost their homes. Others are living in another community not yet able to return home, and they still need our help. With the announcement of our partnership today, we are also putting out the call for assistance. Donations of basic items like new towels, pillows, and new baby bottles are needed. We also need volunteers to help sort donations and get them ready to send to Fort McMurray and other communities. Albertans, businesses, and community groups can contact 310-4455 or visit emergency.alberta.ca for directions on how to help. Every bit of generosity makes a difference, and I know Albertans will answer our call because that is just what Albertans have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I'd now like to invite James Asselford for the Adventist Development and Relief Agency up to speak for a moment.
Thank you, Minister Larrivee, and to our MC, MLA Chris Nielsen. It's both a pleasure and yet a sad thing to be involved here today with the crisis that affected our community in the northeast of the province. ADRA Canada is part of the ADRA network around the world, operational in over 120 different countries. And we in ADRA Canada, in the last 5 years, have touched the lives of over 6.1 million people in 56 different countries in projects that have focused on poverty alleviation and also emergency management. Our mission is to help those in poverty and distress is a word that describes those who are caught in emergencies such as the wildfire that we're addressing today. Appreciate the partnership that we have with the government of Alberta and with the different municipalities and the other non-government organizations or NGOs that have been involved and continue to be involved in this response. And it's an exciting part of responding to crises such as this, that increasingly agencies of government, non-government, the United Nations work together to achieve so much more than would be achieved by working separately. So I welcome the opportunity for ADRA Canada to work in cooperation with the government of Alberta and also of the municipalities, the City of Edmonton, and are just so excited that we have the opportunity in this facility to welcome many volunteers, mostly from Edmonton, who are responding. My mind goes back to that rather stormy day on the 1st of July, 1987, when so many of us who were here at the time were concerned about the rather strange weather. And of course, that's when we had the tornado in the northeast of the city. And at that time, again, Albertans responded with incredible generosity. And we're seeing that again today in this time of generosity being demonstrated by people anxious to help those who are less fortunate and who are having this time of stress and distress. So I'm glad that we will be able to go around the warehouse and see something of the logistics involved, see the actual generosity of Edmontonians and, in fact, people across Alberta, and I'm increasingly hearing from across the country who are responding. Our work in ADRA Canada is made possible by donations from people coast to coast and also from the generosity of the federal government, Global Affairs Canada. And now we have this special partnership with the government of Alberta. Minister Larrivee, I thank you, and the other ministers appreciate this opportunity to be of service together. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for being here today. Our government is confident that our partnership with ADRA and the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo will ensure that Fort McMurray residents receive the donations that they need as they recover and rebuild in the wake of this disaster. I would now, of course, just before I invite you to join us with the tour, we will quickly open up the floor to a couple of questions. But I just want to remind everyone that with the generosity that comes, again, we do need volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering here at the center, please go to emergency.alberta.ca to find out how you can do that. So I'll open up the floor to questions now.
What exactly has changed with this here today? Is this bringing together all the other groups under one roof, or what exactly has changed from the way it was done before to right now?
Right. So it actually has been a gradual transition, over the last couple of weeks, but it's at the time of the fire, there were evacuees dispersed right across the province and a number of organizations volunteered to step up to the plate, which we've heard some about today. So thanks to all those amazing organizations stepping up, but certainly the long-term management in terms of coordinating and consolidating the collection of those resources will work best, in the long term and allow everyone, from those volunteer organizations to get a little bit back to their normal, because of course it's been quite a challenge for them, but we're so proud of them for stepping up to the plate and thankful for the work that they did.
Why do it this way? I mean, you touched on that. Why is it good at this point then to have one organization looking after all that?
Well, certainly the landscape's changing. A lot of residents are returning to Fort McMurray instead of being dispersed across the province. There are certainly a number of people who continue to stay in other communities and will continue to support those organizations, but just recognizing the long-term capacity, of a lot of the volunteer organizations, was starting to be challenged, and we wanted to acknowledge that and support the long-term game by ensuring that it was consolidated and we had that support going forward.
Is there a cost to the Alberta government for this?
Do you have the numbers in
Yeah,
front?
there is. I
do.
can get those to you right after. There is
Yeah.
a bit of a cost just for the coordination and the
So
consolidation.
we do have a contract to provide some of that consolidation work, but certainly a substantial portion of the work that ADRA will do in terms of the center is based on volunteers. So we're very happy to be able to partner with them and provide them, a sum to help with the coordination, and certainly continue to call on people within Edmonton and beyond to come help volunteer.
Maybe this is a question for ADRA as well, but how much need is there for these sorts of donations at the moment? A lot of people might be thinking, hey, the fire's gone, people are back at home, but how much need remains?
Yeah. In terms of specifics, I'll have ADRA talk about it, but the evacuation was for a large city for a long period of time. So there was a number of individuals who went without income for a substantial period of time, and in fact, a number of people who are still not able to work because their employer hasn't get their business up and running. So it's created a lot of challenge for a number of individuals who need some support getting back on their feet after this return. So there's also, of course, the need of those who lost their homes and are also trying to get back on their feet. So with that, there's certainly also the returning home and finding out, even if you had a home, that you might have to throw out a lot of the food that you had there, and with no income not being able to replace that. So again, it's about that long-term stretch on all the resources that a lot of families had in Fort McMurray and replacing that. But in terms of specifics, do you have any?
And certainly this is a dynamic emerging situation, but what we do have is the opportunity for a lot of coordination to ensure that the generosity is matched with the need. And that's a significant task in itself. And I think that the conversations with other organizations, with the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo and others, help to define on a day-to-day basis where we are going forward. And certainly, as the Minister has mentioned, and also MLA Nielsen, the ongoing need for volunteers is very important. Of course, in addition to the websites that have been mentioned, we would say the ADRA Canada Facebook page also has linkages to that, because as the volunteers come, that helps us to make sense of what has been donated, and we can have then ongoing conversations with the different parties as to where specific gaps are emerging. Typically in situations like this, certain things tend to come in quickly and other things not. So as we identify what we have and what we don't have, we can then put out very specific appeals. Well, actually, we need these items or those items. And that helps us to package a response that's more comprehensive.
Right. And so on that note, we've committed to keeping emergency.alberta.ca current, reflective of that dynamic conversation. So anybody looking to make donations can go to that and know what the community actually needs on this at this given moment.
Question For the gentleman from ADRA, you mentioned the tornado. Was that the last time your organization was involved in a disaster effort in Alberta?
That's the last time I was in a disaster in Alberta, because I was here that day, having just come back from a posting in Asia, and I thought that I knew about monsoons in Asia, not this kind of weather here. No, we have responded to other disasters, the BC fires, the Typhoon Igor in Newfoundland or whatever, and our network has expertise responding both sides of the border, and of course internationally with our ADRA partners, whether it be in Myanmar or Ukraine or the Philippines. Typhoon Haiyan, most people think of, was the last really big one that people were talking about, or Typhoon Pamela and so forth.
And do you come with a team, or is it the outward network that does all the coordination? I'm not sure exactly how it works.
We have people from my office who have been here from day one and continue to be here. We've also employed some people since then, and we have also brought in expertise from our network, from other places, to on short-term basis to give that expertise input that maybe we didn't have collectively until then. So we draw on whatever we need to give us the right way forward.
I feel like I'm missing something. Can you spell out the roles in the partnership and what you'll be doing, the province and ADRA, and where are all these donations coming from? And I'm not quite sure I get the partnership at all.
Okay. It's a three-way partnership in terms of the regional municipality being responsible for moving forward and planning the recovery for their community and their residents. So we've worked with them to come up with a plan that this was the best way to manage donations going forward. So their partnership piece is more the communication and collaboration piece. The role of the province essentially is providing some funding to ensure that there's the collaboration and organization and planning around donations. And then the actual donations themselves have actually come in from a variety of places that have been collecting donations around the province to date. So they're now being consolidated here. And of course, we are asking and pleading that those donations continue to come in for new items based on the needs that we're putting on emergency.alberta.ca. So if you certainly have any specific questions around the coordination and collaboration piece, then I can defer to that.
So what is ADRA doing exactly?
Managing this warehouse and the whole process of bringing in the donations. When we say donations, we're referring to donated goods as opposed to cash donations, although those are always welcome. And ensuring that everything is sorted and correctly identified and managed so that nothing is lost, and that we are able to then target these donated goods to the beneficiaries, to the people who need them most.
Minister, after Slave Lake, you'll recall there was a flood of donations then as well. And unfortunately, due to it was so much that they didn't even need it all, and you end up having kids' clothes, cribs, some toy stuff, actually taken to the landfill because they couldn't do anything with it. Have you had a problem like that this time around, and what are you going to do if you have stuff that
So that's the intent of this situation, is that we have a coordinated collaborative response so that we can clearly communicate to people about what we have and about what we then need and where any gaps are on that. Certainly there's no intention of bringing anything usable to the landfills. I mean, we had to date a number of used donations. Sorting through those is a challenging process to make sure that, you know, we sort through what's usable and what's not. So we're really asking for new donations going forward. But certainly there are some other community organizations that their capacity was tremendously stretched in order to support evacuees to date. So we certainly will also work with them to see if there's any donations that seem to be excessive, to work with them to ensure that they're meeting needs of Albertans.
But if you end up getting, say, more clothes than is wanted, what are you going to do with those clothes? What's the plan?
Well, certainly there are a number of organizations within Alberta that look at meeting needs for Albertans. So if there's, I mean, seems to be a surplus to that, we certainly would work with other charities to do that, recognizing that everyone would like to see those in the hands of people who need them. And if for some reason Fort McMurray residents do not need those, that we'll make sure someone who does get them. But in the meantime, the priority for the centre is specifically for the wildfire relief.
Okay, we're going to take a question from the phone now. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Your next question comes from the line of Lucas Myers from 660 News. Your line is open.
Yeah, perhaps this is a question that James could probably best answer. I was just curious, I mean, in terms of, you already kind of laid out some of the most needed items, canned meat, peanut butter, baby food, etc. Is there any, totals in front of you in terms of just how many clothes have been donated or diapers or just any other kind of items that have just come in just kind of en masse? Are there any of those kinds of figures available for what's already been collected?
I don't think we have answers that specifically. It's very much a dynamic at the moment. Trailer loads of things are coming into the warehouse as we speak, and we're sorting and processing. It is all being tabulated and entered into the computer, so we will have those numbers, but I don't have them at my fingertips this moment, sorry.
I also would suggest that the cumulative collection at this point has come into a number of centres, and there have been a phenomenal number of donations that have already been dispersed to evacuees from Fort McMurray, and certainly with so many partners and so many volunteers and organizations involved with those numbers are dispersed right across the province, and we're amazed at what's happened to date, but certainly we'll gather the numbers for what's consolidated here and can provide some details on that going forward.
And those numbers may never be known, but we definitely, I appreciate, Minister, that we are thanking all of those community organizations, churches, whoever, who have already responded in an unsung manner and made a positive difference, and I'm grateful for them. And the previous question also highlights that what I'm delighted we're having here is a very frank and dynamic conversation with the Government of Alberta to ensure that we don't have what was referred to as the throwing away of perfectly good things, but we ensure that everything, all the opportunities are maximized.
Good. I think we can head out on our tour then.
So if you look at the priority list, it's food, it's bedding, it's kids' shoes. What else are you looking for, and what are you not looking for? I got a great old chair here. I got a great lounger. I've got a bookcase. Is that the stuff you're
Right.
looking for?
So we are looking for new items to start with. But the other piece is we do not have the capacity to manage large items such as furniture pieces. So in terms of household items, it's quite limited in terms of those smaller items such as pillows, towels, those more consumable type items. But in terms of specifics, I would continue to refer you as the best source, emergency.alberta.ca, for the list, because it reflects what we know of at this moment that we need the most. So that will be a dynamic list. It will continue to change, and so we really encourage people to stay up to date with that to make sure that they're donating what's actually needed.
I was wondering if, Minister, if you could speak to the possibility of the Red Cross supplying more money to the Fort McMurray evacuees.
I certainly can't speak on behalf of the Red Cross. They've been tremendous partners at this point in time in terms of ensuring that they meet the needs of those who were evacuated. They've done some direct short-term support, which has been tremendously wonderful for the people of Fort McMurray. I know they also have some thoughts around what they can do long-term in terms of supporting the small businesses, supporting the community, and so I'll leave it to them to provide some details ongoing as to how they plan to disperse the remaining funds.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we need to head out on our tour.
When it comes to donations, how are you going to distribute them to people that are in rural areas or scattered all over the province? How's the distribution part going to work?
No? Okay. That's okay. So certainly we are working in collaboration with the centres that are still servicing evacuees across the province. So we have a variety of methods that we plan in terms of transferring the donations to them upon request. So it's about finding out from those organizations what exactly it is they need for the evacuees they're taking care of. So I certainly would encourage them to use the techniques we just referred to, the 310-4455, in order to communicate any needs they might have for remaining evacuees in their communities, and we can work with them to get those materials to them.
I got just one question about transitional housing. I wonder, Minister, if any thought has been given to the needs that people in Fort McMurray will be required. I mean, they have no place to go. In some cases, there is excess capacity, but Has any thought been given to what to do in the interim as they decide if they should rebuild or where to live in that time period?
It is absolutely top of mind that we want people to be able to go to their home community, but also have a safe place to stay until they can get to their permanent home. So we are working with the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. They're taking the primary lead on that in terms of ensuring we do that. There was actually quite a high vacancy rate before the fire, which has provided some extra stock to help us to manage some of those requirements. But the Regional Emergency Operations Center is continuing to develop a plan in cooperation with primarily Human Services and Housing to look at that going forward to ensure that we match people up to a home in the interim.
Okay, thanks. We're going to start the tour now.